For those who are tuned in, thank you so much for joining our first virtual town hall that is presented by the Highlands Economic Partnership and the Cook-Putnam County Chamber of Commerce. With me, I have Speaker Cameron Sexton, Representative Ryan Williams, and Senator Paul Bailey. Thank you all so much for taking time. I know clearly you guys are super busy. Look where you are right now. Your environment's behind you. But we'll go ahead and get started. I want to first introduce Speaker Sexton before he gives his brief summary of what all went on with this legislative session. We all know it was a crazy one, but you all got through it efficiently and effectively, and you're back in your districts. But well, actually, Speaker Sexton's running across the state right now. But Speaker Sexton is the Speaker of the Tennessee State House of Representatives, serving the state legislature since 2010. He represents District 25, covering parts of Putnam County, my hometown of Monterey, Cumberland County, and Van Buren County. He is also a graduate of Oak Ridge High School and Tennessee Tech, and is married to Lacey Sexton. I wonder, is Lacey driving right now?
No.
Oh, she's not? Okay. And then has three children. If you would, go ahead, Speaker Sexton, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, well, thank you for allowing us to jump on. I came in with Ryan and I came in together, and Paul was shortly thereafter. And we have a great team on the Upper Cumberland area. And real briefly, a couple things that we accomplished this year. We had a TIF bill for Cumberland County, City of Crossville, to help them with sales tax, foregone revenue to bring in some industry. I think, as always, one thing that we always look at to help businesses is our budget that we pass. Unlike the city of Nashville and some other states, we were able to pass a budget without raising taxes. In the last 2 years, we put about $1.5 billion rainy day fund, and so we were able to have that. And as we continue to go forward and look to see what happens, our number one goal is to continue to meet business needs and meet the Tennessee needs without raising taxes. And we also had some money that the federal government passed down. And what we've been able to do with that is shore up the unemployment trust fund to make sure that businesses' unemployment compensation tax does not go up during these rough times. So we put in roughly about $300 million into that to keep it above $1 billion. And then if you look at the budget, we reduced the hall income tax, or eliminated the hall income tax, which helps seniors as well as some businesses. We were able to balance the budget, like I said, put in some sales tax holidays, hopefully to help businesses get up and going and get people to spend more money. And we did all that without raising taxes. And so we felt like it was a very good budget. We made about $250 million in cuts. We used about $600 million of one-time money. And then we took about $40 million of unspent, unfilled positions in the state of Tennessee and used that to balance the budget, because we didn't feel like it was time to do that and allow the departments to use that money for other things that's not as transparent. And then we had to take away raises, and as members of the General Assembly, we took away our raises because the state employee raises had to go away. So there was tough decisions that had to be made. And we're hopeful to get back in August if we can. To fix the Tennessee liability for all businesses in the state of Tennessee.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Speaker Sexton, so much for that update. So we're going to go on to Senator Bailey. Just to give you a background, Senator Bailey has served in the Tennessee State Senate since 2014. He represents District 15, which includes Cumberland, Jackson, Overton, Bledsoe, Putnam, and White counties. He also is the chair of Senate Commerce and Labor Committee, which, in my opinion, coming from ECD, that was one of the most important committees by far for just about everything you need approval on. Senator Bailey is also a graduate of White County High School, and as well as Tennessee Tech, and is married and has 3 children as well. Senator Bailey, if you would just go ahead and give us an update from you.
Thank you, Amy, and congratulations on being in your new role, and we're certainly happy to have you back in Cookeville and Putnam County. So you're doing an awesome job, and so congratulations. Speaker Sexton summed up what I feel like the special session, or not necessarily the special session, but our June session of the General Assembly was. I'm going to come to you from a business perspective. A lot of people look at the trucking industry as the first economic indicator. And so what I've seen over the last several months is about a 20% decrease in the month of April as far as my business was concerned. But coming back in May when things began to open, I've seen most companies that we haul for start reopening, having a lot of orders coming through their manufacturing facilities. And of course, we deliver from California to Maine to Florida, and also up into the Northwest. And we've been seeing a lot of those companies all across America begin to reopen, which I think is very positive news for our nationwide economy. But Tennessee has been resilient simply because of what the General Assembly has done over the past several years. And we're bouncing back quicker than a lot of the other states that we go into. So I think that leadership in the past has been.
Oh, cutting out just a little bit toward the end. We got you. Thank you. Okay, awesome. So we'll go ahead, we'll go ahead and go to Representative Williams. Representative Ryan Williams has served as the representative from Putnam County since 2011. Representative Williams represents the District 42, which includes the rest of Putnam County, west of the Monterey, Cookeville, Allgood, Baxter, and those outside in the county district. But he's also a graduate of Carson Newman University and is married, and from Cookeville High School. Is that correct, Ryan? You are
no, no, it's all right. I'm married to Cookeville, yeah.
Oh, okay. And then is married, wife Abby, and has 2 children, and he is also the chair of the Life and Health Insurance Committee. With that, Ryan, I'll go ahead and open that up for you to do your update.
Okay, I'll try to be brief as well. As Speaker Sexton said, he and I came in together in 2011, so relationships is a huge part of legislating and the process, and so I'm very thankful for that. It's because of him that I'm able to be a chairman of the Life and Health Subcommittee, and so for that I'm thankful. Congratulations to you on your new role. We are happy to have you home, and soon to be number 2 for you, and so we're really excited for you. But Putnam County, I'll talk a little bit about Putnam County since that's where the chamber is. Of course, you know, we're all part-time legislators, full-time employees, or business owners. And so Putnam County, because we were reliant so much upon the service industry, Putnam County was hurt pretty bad by COVID, obviously, in the service industry. But all across the community, it seems as though manufacturing and construction are continuing the boom that we were experiencing before. It kind of slowed for a little bit, but progress is going on. As you know, we announced some additional job announcements a couple weeks ago, which is really good for Putnam County, which means what we've seen is those existing businesses in Cookeville are continuing to thrive and grow. And so looking into the future, that's really exciting. Bright spots would also be housing is continuing to grow here in Putnam County, and also Speaker Sexton, his full-time jobs, he's in banking, and so the banking industry is going to start all across the nation is going to start presenting their quarterly reports. And so based upon all the discussions that I've had with the banking industry in Putnam County, it's doing really well. And so we're really excited for that. But I think the main thing that most families, I know the Williams household is looking forward to finding out today what the school board is going to decide as it relates to schools. So it's a huge component of what we're doing. We want to say thanks to Cookeville Regional Medical Center and the Putnam County Health Department for their role that they played in COVID and getting people to work and getting tested. But really excited about what the future holds and continue to see a lot of growth here in Putnam County.
Thank you. Thank you for that update. Okay, so we already have some questions coming through, and I'm not sure if we want to, maybe if you want to just like throw your hand up and say that way we can, or thumbs up if you want to answer the question. But the first one actually has to do with hospitality industry. So it says, with the hospitality industry being hit so hard by COVID-19 and tourism serving as the number 2 industry in the state, what solutions do you envision to assist in the recovery of this economic driver for our state? And I know we have Commissioner Ezell as our economic recovery group leader, so hopefully it will be strong.
Yeah, I'll take that one first, Amy. So the governor has a financial stimulus accountability group, I serve on it with Lieutenant Governor McNally, some members of the House and Senate, as well as Commissioner Ely. A couple things that we've done with the $2.3 billion in stimulus money. One is we put forth a grant program to help businesses, and they don't have to apply for it, they're just going to get it. So about $200 million for businesses in our state within certain industries. Hospitality was one of them, was restaurants was in there, if based on how hard they were hit. So the harder they were hit, the more money that they'll receive from this. So you could be anywhere from people who actually had to shut down and lost 100% of sales revenue, or people who lost 40% of sales revenue. So anywhere in between that, we've identified those businesses, and they're going to get checks from the state, hopefully here very soon, anywhere between $10,000 to $30,000. It doesn't matter if they applied for PPP or not. This is just in addition to that. So that's the first step of trying to help some of the businesses. Hospitality is included on that. The second thing that we're looking at now, we're starting to look at nonprofits, which is the convention bureaus and other things in that area. And so we're trying to look to help nonprofits. And so with the convention bureaus, we try to help them because, as everybody knows, the hotel motel tax is where they get their money to market their areas from. That industry has been hit hard. I think now it's back up to about 50% as about a week or so ago. So it's starting to come back. So revenue is starting to generate. But a lot of those convention bureaus have a big deficit. And so as they're trying to meet their demands, they're having a hard time. So those are two things that we're doing now to help those industries, as well as what I mentioned before about trying to keep the unemployment trust fund up because people had to get laid off because of things were shut down. So it's an indirect benefit. Hopefully they'll never see that cost come to them. Otherwise, if we didn't put that money into the unemployment trust fund, they would have an additional burden on them at this time. So there's been a few things that we have done recently with the federal money to help the industry.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. That's all really great information, and we'll have to make sure we share that with all of our members too, and on the page. Okay, so they're passing me questions as they're coming in. So here's one. How are legislators working to support working parents and guardians who will have school-age children learning remotely, especially when those children and students are too young to be left alone? Not all parents have support systems in place to assist them.
I don't mind taking that one. Do you want me to take that? Okay. Of course, been in contact with the school board system, and then the state has also set aside some additional monies as it relates to CARES Act so that local school systems can afford services and they can use the grants that we've supplied to them. I think Putnam County got 2 points in the first round, and there's a second round of CARES Act money that's coming. That money can be used any way the local school board sees fit. I think one of the things that we learned in COVID is that school systems are extremely independent from the state government, and so rightfully so. And so the decisions on how those monies are spent and how they can be allocated is really important. I think things that they can use those for are laptops and internet service and things like that for people to be able to do that. I think that's one of the ways that we can help parents. One of the most difficult things right now, even before COVID, was there was a real shortage of daycare or for those people in Putnam County. And so even before COVID, we were looking at ways to try to help do that. I know that through the CARES Act and through the governor's office and the leadership of the House and Senate, we were able to provide some additional resources to those first responders for daycare and open some places up in order to do that and to expand those grants, if you will, for those folks. And so I think you're going to see continuation and more of that. But I think I'm hopeful today that the school system will be able to strike a balance for those parents who feel comfortable about sending their kids to school and those who don't feel comfortable sending, that there would be multiple pathways for them to do that based upon their own individual circumstance, if you will.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything to add on that? The schools?
Well, I would just say that.
Go ahead, Senator Bailey. Sorry.
Well, I would just say I think, well, my opinion, we've got to be cautious, but at the same time, we've got to get our schools open back, and we've got to get our children back on a routine. It's not only going to help them, but it's also going to help the parents. And that's my opinion, that we get our school systems back open, get our students back in a routine, and that'll be the biggest help for our parents.
Absolutely. Yes, speaking for someone here too, I'm ready for Lily Kate to get back in some kind of routine. So the next question, Tennessee's Constitution requires the state to have a balanced budget. With the pandemic and the effect it is having on the economy, what are some steps the General Assembly took to balance it, and what are your thoughts on the effect it will have on business? And we kind of touched on this, but is there anything else you'd like to add from the standpoint of the Upper Cumberland region?
I think the speaker said correctly when he was talking about the things we did. We were in the budget process while we were balancing the budget. We were able to cut the resources where we had unfilled positions. I think what people don't realize is that over a period of time, we had this expectation that we need all these additional positions, but we were able to cut those positions. So that we could afford to do the things that we're currently doing. And so I don't know that the governor or the speaker actually committed the dollar amount, but we cut over $1 billion of this year's budget, which would allow us to be able to have about similar to the same budget we had last year. And so we were able to do that through many different ways without spending money in the rainy day fund, which I think was really, really important for all of us. But we put ourselves in a really good position going forward. But of course, the impact of that is that the Putnam County, the overall sales tax revenue was at a loss. And so that's how it impacts Putnam and all of our cities here as well.
Let me add one thing, because I get this question a lot. People say, well, if it's not raining now, why have so much money in the rainy day fund, right? You kind of hear that. And so what we tapped first was the reserves that each department has that they build up over time. Currently in Tennessee, there's about $2 billion in reserve for every department if you combine them. I think that excludes TennCare. And so we tapped that to be about $600 million the first time, to use that to the shortfall of this year. And then next year, we made some additional harder cuts with some additional reserves going in. And one of the things is, in your family budget, the last thing you want to tap is like your investments in your 401k, because that's a source of money. So you're going to try to live within your means. If things take a downturn, you're going to try to find some additional money, make cuts, maybe use some of the savings account. And if things really, really get bad, then you may borrow from your 401k at some point to make ends meet, to get back out. So we kind of view the budget in the state of Tennessee the same way. If we had listened to what the Democrats were wanting us to do about 4 years ago and 2 years ago, they were saying at that time with the billion, we had too much money. You need to spend, you need to spend, you need to spend. Well, if we would have listened to what they wanted us to do 2 and 4 years ago, we'd be where Nashville is right now, which is raising taxes. And that's not a very conservative philosophy or business-friendly philosophy. And so what we do is prepare ourselves for today. And I think you see a budget that everybody can like. Not everybody agrees with it, because there are some hard cuts. But we are managing ourselves out of this system to the way that I think the people elected us to do it.
Thank you. Any other comments on that question? I think we have one more. This comes through, actually 2 more, but one more that I feel like is really important for us to touch, especially for the audience that is logged in. So the Tennessee Business Recovery and Safe Harbor Act bill, which would provide broad civil liability protection for businesses due to the COVID-19 pandemic, failed to be passed. What are your thoughts, and do you think it will be revisited in August? Or whenever we come back together?
I'll jump on that first, because I'll give the speaker an opportunity to say, because he's going to have a lot more to say about this than I did, only because there's a lot of discussion right now whether the Tennessee General Assembly will come back. They can come back as it relates to a call of the governor, or by both Speaker of the House and the Lieutenant Governor. And I suspect there's lots of discussion about that. The immunity bill, quite frankly, got hung up after a conference committee report in the House. There were some concerns about retroactivity and constitutionality, and of course, was in the waning hours of the close of session, and folks were trying to get back to their communities to serve them there. And so there were some problems that some of the members had. I felt like that it met the constitutional muster. I did vote for the legislation in the conference committee report that came out of there. And so as a member of Putnam County, I'm hopeful, and I have shared this with the speaker, that I'm hopeful that he and the lieutenant governor or the governor unilaterally can try to find some solution for us to come back to a special session, maybe after the primary, to kind of deal with that. But I also think that there are some other things that are very important in addition to the immunity bill, like telehealth and telemedicine that we have for seniors. The speaker had been worked prior to his becoming the speaker. He was the chairman of the health committee, House Health Committee, and so he worked tirelessly as it relates to this model legislation. I think it's something that I think we should also revisit. But anything COVID related, I think we should do it. But I'm a supporter of the immunity bill. I think it's important for the healthcare community, and in particular, Department of Health and Cookeville Regional Medical Center, but also for those businesses who are trying to open and provide services here in our community.
Thank you. Any other comments on that?
Comment last. Paul, do you want to go on this one too?
Well, I think the immunity bill is one of the most important pieces of legislation that we did not pass during the June session that we really need to go back and revisit. This is something that will help businesses all across the state of Tennessee that's been affected by a disease that, that they have no ability to control. And so for us to be able to put a roadblock in there to basically keep ambulance chasing lawyers from being able to sue businesses for something that's no fault of their own is very important.
Yeah, and to follow up on both of them, we're hopeful that we'll go back in. It won't be a one thing session. We're going to take care of a multitude of different things. And so we're working through that process. I think also as we're working through that process to try to get to a date, I know there's dates that have been put out. It's up to the governor to make that call. I think he will make the call. But we also have to be aware of COVID and how it's the numbers are increasing. So we may not be able to get back in as soon as we think. We're going to have to wait and see. I think there's several more weeks to go to see how this looks. But we are hopeful that we'll go back. We're hopeful that we'll fix the liability coverage issue. I think part of the problem is you had the coalition, some members of that business coalition on this bill thought they had more votes on the House floor than they did. We tried to advise them that we didn't think their vote count was that high. They disagreed with us, and they wanted to put something up for a vote, which we got put up for a vote. They didn't have the votes. That's the way it goes sometimes. And so there's two bodies, and with the two bodies, you work together with one another, and you try to get to a point. So we're going to go back to the drawing board, take a look at it. I'm hopeful we can get it done. Is it going to be in August, September, some point? Not 100% sure based on what's happening with the virus as it's going through right now. But we are hopeful to go back and take care of that issue and a couple other issues. And one of the issues I hope we take care of is defacing public property, tearing down monuments that are historical, providing protections for law enforcement from assaults and stuff that's going on. And we're okay with peaceful protests, but violent protests, rioting, looting is not okay. And we need to go back and take a harder look at that as well. And so there's things that we need to go back in to take a look at. We're hopeful we'll get to that point, and we're in discussions about it right now.
Thank you. Senator Bailey?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have any comments on that one too?
No, the greatest thing about being, I made my statement on the immunity bill that I felt like that was something that should have been passed. Obviously, not everyone had done their homework to make sure that they had the votes in the House. The Senate passed it unanimously, and it got hung up in the House. But the greatest thing about serving in the Upper Cumberland is, I don't really have to say a lot because I've got the Speaker of the House, and then I have Representative Williams, and those two guys are always on top of everything, feeding me information. So it's great whenever I can just sit here, listen, and absorb from them.
That's great. Okay, awesome. So we've got another question that's come through. And then for those that are tuned in through Facebook, the best way to leave a comment or a question is, Allison, they can leave the comment on the side. So if you have additional questions, you can add those into the comment box. We've got 41 on Facebook, not sure about how many on YouTube right now, but as states across the country are considering removing right-to-work laws, a coalition, including the Tennessee Chamber, has been working to get the policy included in the Tennessee Constitution. What are your thoughts on the right-to-work laws, and will you support the efforts in 2021?
Well, I'll jump in and answer that one because that one came through the Commerce Committee, and the answer is yes. I supported it this year, and I will continue to support it in the future.
I'll chime in there too. I'm a co-prime sponsor of that constitutional amendment. It's a resolution in order to do that. I think it's really important. Obviously, the right to work is, and these type of laws or statute is been enacted in the state law in Tennessee since for more than 70 years. I think the importance of making it a constitutional amendment just preserves that right of what we're already enacting, and I think it's really important. Most of the success you've seen in the state over the last decade has been because we are a right to work state. And so I think making it a constitutional amendment would preserve that for future generations and give some comfort to those businesses who are invested already here in our state and those who are looking to flee those overtaxed burdened states and other places too.
And I'll just, I mean, I think the voters will see that on the ballot in that next governor's race. It will be there. It'll be one of the constitutional amendments to vote on to give protections to businesses, but also to Tennesseans as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any other comments? So it looks like we have another one that's come through from probably one of our tourism stakeholders, but it says, with the Upper Cumberland serving as home to more than 20 state parks and natural areas, 3 corps of engineer lakes, as well as unique visitor attractions, eatery shops, etc., how do you feel tourism marketing ranks as an area of focus and investment for our regional stakeholders?
Well, we knew tourism was a really important part of the Upper Cumberland. We do. I mean, since Cameron and Speaker Sexton and I got elected in 2010, you know, he and I were championing with then Governor Haslam about adding Cummins Falls to the state park. Now it's one of the nation's most visited swimming holes prior to COVID-19. It's a beautiful place. It's a reason why. And of course, since Speaker Sexton gets all the benefit, because I think in every county of his, he's got at least one state park there. So tourism is huge part of what we're doing. So because of COVID, though, he and I have been petitioning, and Speaker and Senator Bailey have been petitioning Commissioner Bryson about trying to get those parks back open. Obviously, utilizing some social distancing ideas or methods or techniques, because we had Cummins closed for a long time, and that's a huge driver as it relates to tourism. And so the more that we can open that up, the better it's going to be, so that there's no better form of marketing dollar than word of mouth. And we've seen that at Cummins. And so being able just to have them open is a huge deal. But I think the state has done a really good job investing in tourism dollars because it is such an important aspect of who we are as Tennesseans. We have 3 stars on the flag because geographically we are 3 different areas across the state. And so we've done a really good job marketing that. And I think you're going to see with this budget and future budgets that we're going to continue to do that in the state.
Thank you.
Well, I think if I add to that, I think there's a great opportunity this Wednesday night with the NASCAR All-Star race being in Bristol for the first time, which will hopefully be a big event and allow us to market Tennessee. And so I think we need to look for opportunities, things like that, to help market Tennessee as a whole. I think when you're looking at people who are being moved up in other states and not be able to get out, I think they're looking for opportunities. I think the Upper Cumberland area with all the outdoor activities that we have is a benefit that we need to market. I could do the Caney not too long ago. At the right times, they weren't letting water, so it took a little while to get down the Caney. But what I will say is there's a lot of great things that we can do up here to bring people in. We take personal accountability for ourselves, make sure that we do things to protect other people around us, whether you wear a mask or watch other people. So I think two-pronged approach. We have to be accountable to ourselves and protect others. advocates to open up and bring people in for tourism because they're going to want to feel safe when they come in. Commissioner Zone, the governor has put together the Tennessee Pledge. Hopefully we can roll that out to give confidence to people that those businesses are providing services and doing the things they need to protect people if they want to come into their establishment.
Absolutely. Thank you. Mayor Bailey, do you have anything to add for that one?
Well, I think it's very important. That's one of the first things that we saw open was get our state parks back up and going, because we knew that people needed to be out. They needed to be going and visiting and having a quality of life. That's one thing we just can't, continue to keep our state closed down, and to be able to open all of these tourist areas up, whether it be a state park, whether it be a racetrack in Bristol, or whether it's Gatlinburg or in Memphis at Graceland. Graceland has now announced that they're going to be open again and receiving visitors. I just think we have to be diligent in making sure that we're taking personal responsibility for ourselves and the public that we're around, as far as the social distancing that has been given in guidelines. But it is very important to the state of Tennessee that we get our tourist economy back moving and opening again. It's very important to make sure that we get that revenue flowing back in, because we rely on it so heavily.
Thank you. So this is the next question, and it's got some bullets with it. So the budget cuts, with the budget cuts being $1 billion from the governor's original proposal, can any of you comment on the loosening restrictions from four counties and cities to spend proceeds previously earmarked with the $200 million commitment?
Yeah, I can jump in on that. Basically, the $200 million that the General Assembly and appropriated to go to the cities and counties originally had restrictions on it, and it was going to be more of a grant process. But once we realized that we had gone through COVID and our cities and counties were going to have revenue shortfalls just the same as the state was going to have, that we loosened those restrictions and basically allowing the cities and counties to be able to use the money that they're receiving in any way that they deem necessary for their budgets.
Thank you. Any other comments on that one?
I will say with Ryan's on finance, you want to talk about the rural aspect, Ryan?
Well, I think you go ahead, Speaker. I'll follow up.
So I'll be brief. So what we ended up doing with the $200 million is we reduced some of the bigger cities like Memphis and Nashville who got CARES Act money. And so we reduced those amounts, those big cities, and actually put more money into rural areas to help them. So with that, Ryan, you can go right ahead.
Well, I think the combination, they answered the question perfectly. The combination of both those things allows Putnam County and all the counties of the Upper Cumberland to be able to draw down this money. I think it's really important when you talk to, and this is also important for one other reason is, Putnam County was hit by a March 3rd tornado. And so you have 276 homes who are no longer here, and the property tax revenue is not coming into the county. They're just paying property taxes on the land that they still own. And so there was a huge loss of revenue there. And so, in particularly for next year, because it was after taxes were due, and so it's an integral part. And so this could help offset the shortfall, not just in the Upper Cumberland as it relates to COVID, but also in Putnam County. We got a double whammy of that. So lots of thanks to the governor and lieutenant governor and speaker for making sure we could serve rurals better since they were most hardest hit.
And Representative Williams, I know that you're passionate about this too, as you served in the previous administration with the Governor's Rural Task Force too. So this continuation is awesome to see from the community standpoint.
Right.
Senator Bailey, do you have any comments on that one?
Well, I believe I opened, if you're referring to the cities and counties.
Yeah, I didn't know if you had any other comments. Sorry, I'm trying to refer back as much as I can because we're touching a bunch of different areas, but it looks like, do we have any more comments that are coming from the live feed right now? So we don't have any other comments, but one question that, and we would love to continue to have these, especially as when session starts back up, do like updates every couple of weeks or something like that, a brief update, and have you all get on here to update the community. But I will say, what do you feel is the best way for those who are tuning in right now to stay up to date on what's going on, like a specific website or following you on Twitter or Facebook, or what's the best channel?
Well, I'll jump in on that one. Obviously, I tweet. I also have a Facebook that I try to keep relevant information that's going on in the 15th Senate District flowing through those two social media channels. So I would welcome anyone to like our Facebook page or follow us on the Twitter, and it's at Paul Bailey 4TN. And then that's FORTN, Paul Bailey, FORTN, for both Twitter and Facebook. And we do a newsletter from time to time. You can actually go to my legislative website, and there's a link on the bottom of left-hand corner that you can click on and sign up for our email blast that we do periodically.
Great, thank you. And then any other comments? Representative Williams?
Well, nothing beats, I'm in the phone book here. For those people that don't know what a phone book is, they still exist. I saw a voter on yesterday. My home phone is in the phone book. My legislative phone numbers are there. Email addresses are always good. Of course, Senator Bailey, because he has such a large geographical area, and Speaker Sexton too, they get more they get a lot of calls, and so we get a lot of calls. We just tell people to send us an email or contact us on our legislative pages. Social media is great for up-to-date news. We try to share about different things that happen, of course, but when you're in the flow of session, you're limited to 25 bills before the flow motion, so there's a lot going on. But I think these kinds of discussions are a fantastic way to keep your members involved of what's going on day to day or week to week. And so we'd encourage them to do that. But we do a really good job. My assistant does a really good job, and Paul and Cameron's do as well, getting back to our constituents as quickly as we can. And so we just encourage people to do that, because accessibility is really important to all of us.
Absolutely. And what we'll do is we'll commit. We did have another question come through, but we'll commit to, after this is, after we post it, and all my team's like turning to look at me, what are we committing to? We'll commit to putting everyone's social media channels out there so that people, again, encouraging them to follow you, but also the newsletter link so that they can sign up for Senator Bailey's newsletter. And if anyone has any, we'll put those. Speaker Sexton, did you have anything to add?
Well, I mean, what I will say is there's so much information that's available. So sometimes when we put things out, it might not be as interesting to everybody because everybody has different interests. And so I think that's where associations like the Chamber, like you, and maybe other industries, as they continue to put out and they're engaged to help their members, I think that's a very add-on benefit for us. And so we'll always be happy to give you anything that you need, as well as any association, because people might come straight in to see what's happening in the business in the state of Tennessee and come to you instead of trying to come through the three of us. So I think everybody working together to kind of achieve that, and we try to hit the high points on what we think that most people want to hear back. But if somebody has a question, please just reach out to us. We'll be happy to take the call. Our cell phones are published, and call the offices, and we'll be happy to solve or help or do whatever we can to answer the question.
Thank you. Okay, we did have another question, and I think this maybe comes from the Biz Foundry, but seeing the need for rural broadband and understanding this is a federal issue, can we move towards doing away with the franchise and phone line requirements for co-ops? I think we may have actually done some of this with the Broadband Accessibility Act, but I'll let you all comment on that.
Well, we've certainly been working very hard to get broadband expanded into the rural areas, and especially into the Upper Cumberland. And I can say that all of our rural co-ops, Twin Lakes, Ben Lomond, Bledsoe telephone co-op that are in the 15th Senate District, have just done yeoman's work as far as trying to get broadband expanded into all of their rural areas of the counties that they serve. Obviously, there's still spots that they haven't gotten to, but they have committed that they'll get there as quickly as possible. Tennessee has done a great job as far as providing funds for these rural telephone co-ops to get broadband into those rural areas. It's definitely good for commerce, especially small businesses. And even today, if we're talking about students only being able to go to school a couple of days a week and then have to virtually go to school, if we don't have high-speed broadband in some areas, it's going to really be an issue as far as getting those students the materials that they need in regards to education.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments?
I think Senator Bailey summed that up really well. I think we just want to say thanks to the leadership and to the governor for putting so much money in the last several years through rural broadband, those technology grants, because there are a lot of citizens in the Upper Cumberland who now have service who didn't have service before. And so I know you have my commitment, and I'm sure my colleagues continue to fund those accessibility grants, because they are such an important part of getting a lot of our rural communities, as you alluded to earlier, to be able to kind of get into the 21st century as it relates to technology. And so I think it's really important for us to do that. And just commerce itself in rural communities needs broadband.
But what I would say is, I don't think there's any protected markets anymore. I think they can go wherever they want to go inside the state of Tennessee. One of the reasons they don't is because the cost of infrastructure is so great to lay line. And most of the people who don't have broadband is because the population density is a little different. It makes it more costly. What I will say, though, is Ryan and Paul both carried a bill this year to help with the frontier issue. So, while we're trying to put broadband into the certain areas, and as we're trying to do that, I think there's also an aspect of it of people who are saying they provide broadband service and they don't provide broadband service, but yet they're having you pay the cost for broadband. So they had legislation this year where they were trying to force the issue. Hopefully it will come back next year. But we also have to be aware of, if companies aren't providing, then you shouldn't have to pay the cost. And I think that's a big issue that we're trying to get there. Alan Foster in Cumberland County and Mayor Porter there in Putnam County have worked very hard with the FCC to change the maps to open up the broadband. I think the state of Tennessee has changed how they do that. They don't rely on the FCC maps anymore. That helps rural areas overcome issues where people say that they do have broadband, but they really don't. So, it's a big, important issue for us as we continue to move forward. And the one thing, too, is what I will say is why it's great to lay fiber. We also need to be looking at other technologies to see if there's other things we can do in rural areas that will provide a broad range of broadband without the high cost. So we have to be able to maneuver as we go forward.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so I don't think there's been any other questions come through. So with that, do you all have any closing comments for this group?
Well, Amy, this has been a vision of mine for ever since. I'll jump back in. So from the time that I was elected in 2014 and began meeting with the Cookeville Chamber and the Highlands, this has been a vision of mine that the legislators that represent the Upper Cumberland have an opportunity to meet with and have discussion with its members and people in the community that really want to know what the legislative process is and how it takes place. And so I commend you for these virtual town halls and getting this going. I think there's other members that represent the Upper Cumberland that we could definitely bring in and have them be a part as well. But you couldn't have three greater people on the call this morning, though, with Speaker Sexton, Williams, and you.
I was going to say the same thing. This has been awesome. Thank you.
Well, I concur with the senator, and I'm sure the speaker may have some closing comments, but it has been a little bit of a challenge being able to reach the the chamber members, for whatever reason that is. And so I'm really excited about the opportunity of continuing this. I think it's really important. I think one of the interesting parts about COVID is it created pathways really that existed that we didn't know. And so it's my hope that we continue to do things like this so that we can communicate about what's going on, sometimes real time, where we can come to your members and say, hey, this is something that's going on in the legislature right now. How do you feel about it, right? Because we don't get that. We might get that from one or two of your members, but we wouldn't get it from a group of those members. But we could do that through a platform like this. And so I want to thank you and for my colleagues for their unwavering support. It is definitely a team process. The legislative making process is a team process. And it's not just the legislators, but it's all the stakeholders involved. And I think the chamber is a way, and the Highlands through the Upper Cumberland is a way for everyone to kind of inculcate as much time and effort as they want to in it. So for that, we're thankful. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. And if anybody needs anything, or if there's any questions come up after, please feel free to give us a call.
Thank you. Speaker Sexton.
Yeah, well, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. And it's great serving alongside of Ryan and Paul in Nashville. And working with you in your past roles, Amy, and now in your new role here in the Cumberland area and Cookeville in the Putnam County Chamber. What I will say is, one of the things as we come through this year, which has been an amazing year with multiple tornadoes and flooding and a pandemic, and I hope nothing else comes, but you never know based on 2020. What I will say is even with all the bad and the different things that we're having to do, I think it's important to realize we need to take the positives that we see out of this. And I think there's a couple positives that came out of this. One is when we did do a safe harbor, I think you saw a lot more people eating at home and being with their family, which I think has changed over the years. And so I think that's a re-emerging, maybe of families getting back together again at the dining room table and having conversations person to person. Instead of text to text. I think that's very positive. I think the value of the farming community and fresh food and what that looks like, supply chain and how important that is. I think we came out with a better realization of how fragile that is and what we need to do to protect agriculture in our state. And then I think too with technology, as we look at this and look at Zoom and look at all the different things that technology allows people, no matter where they're traveling to connect, to bring issues together. And I think this is one hub in education, I hope, to where one of the things I like to talk about is not all public schools have the same opportunities in our state. People in Tipton County don't have the same classes as Putnam County or Cumberland County or Anderson County. And so having this technology may be able to allow us to bring students together for classes that they may have never been able to take in high school through this mechanism. Also help tutoring and doing a lot of other things to help improve education in our state. So as we be with the division of Nashville on our races, I hope everybody votes for Ryan Williams coming up here in August. He's a important part of the process for us in Nashville. Paul doesn't have an opponent this year, so he's just parked on the side of the road waiting for people. So what I will say is that we're together, and with everybody else too, Terry Lynn, Kelly, John Mark, Ken Yeager, we all work very well together with one another, and we all have the best interest of Tennessee and the Upper Cumberland area, and we're always going to fight for what's important to the people on the plateau as well as Tennessee. And so it's just an honor to be here and focusing on the positive, not so negative, learn from it, but let's figure out what has happened during this pandemic, and let's use that to our move forward in the future.
Thank you so much, Speaker Sexton. I will tell you from my experience at working at the state level and also through Vanderbilt Medical Center that we are so very blessed in the Upper Cumberland with the leadership that we do have. It's a powerhouse in Nashville, so I appreciate you all so very much, and I hope that we can continue to do these. We will continue to do these, and I agree when Representative Williams was talking about this being a new platform to be able to keep the district up to date, the chamber members, those who serve in the Highlands, the investors, and the workforce development stakeholders. We want to make sure that we can keep them as up to date as possible and see if there's anything also they can be doing on the ground level to help you all, as you're the voice for us at the Capitol. So I appreciate you all so very much. And with that, if we don't have any other comments, we may close this out, and we will make sure that we post this live, or post the link to the recording on Facebook, Twitter. What all other things do we have here? Oh, it's Snapchat. No, I'm just kidding. We don't have Snapchat, but
It'll be on
it will also be on YouTube. So we'll make sure we share that. But we appreciate you so much. And with that, thank you, and we'll close out. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
See ya.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.